Okay, we're live.
All right. Thanks everybody for coming. I'm going to show some stuff that I'm going to start off by showing some stuff that I did for the CanJS meetup in Chicago that I found pretty interesting. I'm just trying to find my place I did it all. The code that I used. Give me one. I'm going to share my screen here. So, Kyle, it's working for us. I guess you can't hear me. Let me do that. Oh, so bad. Okay. So the one thing I wanted to show that I kind of came across, it was actually two things. One was with the how to do the how to set up two-way binding with CanRoute map now. So we've talked about this demo a few times with the make model year demo. Which you guys might remember looks like, and oh, I couldn't get it to work with push state while I was there. I'll have to come back to that. Let me just kill the routing stuff anyways. Okay, so the make model year demo lets you pick a make and then pick a model and then a year and then a bunch of vehicles show up. Now I wanted to make this work with the back button, so I wanted to hook up to CanRoute, but that means I needed the instance of. So let's see how this app really works real quick. I define a make model year view model that will load. Let me get rid of this because I'll bring this back. That loads a list of cars right away, and then we'll load the models when make changes with the with the getter kind of syntax. It's a really nicely defined view model, and what I do is I basically just render a. I have a component, and then I just have kind of content inside of it. This really should belong inside the template of the component, but I just embedded it as user content. And I just pass the make model year view model constructor function, which when CanJS finds that MMY tag, it'll create a new instance of MMY view model and use that to kind of render the data in here, right? Which I'm using to kind of control, this selection and how this all cascades, how when I change from Nissan to Ford, how all of these things go back to different values. All of that is controlled in the view model. But what I need now is I want an instance of make model year view model cross-bound to the hash, but then also that same instance used to render essentially this template here and be the instance that this component uses for its scope. So I just guessed on how to do that, and it worked out while I was doing it because I haven't actually used CanRoute map yet. But so what I did was, I bet there's a few different ways of doing this, but the first thing I need to do is I wanted to cross-bind CanRoute. I wanted its data, its observable that it keeps inside of itself, its map, that it cross-binds to the hash, to be an instance of make model year or MMY view model. I could do it like this. I could just do MMY equals new make model year view model, and I'll do it this way kind of at first. And then what I need to do is cross-bind I need the scope here to be that instance of MMY. So the template and kind of what the data inside this component is this MMY instance here. And to do that, I go like this, and I'll just return MMY. So you can have a function that defines. So I need to make sure it's the same instance. That's why I can't leave it. Hold on. Is everybody following me? I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, Justin, I think as long as it's a map, it's just going to use the same thing, isn't it?
Are you saying that?
No, just MMY. Won't that work?
I'm actually not sure. I don't remember if you can. I didn't do it that way. I can't remember. I'd have to look up the docs if you can pass a single instance. You might be able to.
In the docs it says you can, I think.
Oh, well, then you can probably do it just that way. Then that probably would work. And then, okay, so I'm going to pass the MMY instance as the scope of the component. And then I just need to call can.route.ready to set up the binding. And this will not quite work yet. I kind of want to show why. Okay, see, you can see here how it added all this kind of crazy makes, and this is because each make it's adding to the hash, because what can_route uses is the serialized form of MMY. And because the serialized form of this view model includes the makes, like list, and all of the items inside, like each make, that's why that's getting put in the hash up here. So to prevent that, that's pretty easy. I can just do serialize false, and then I will refresh. I'll delete that, refresh my page, and now it should work with the back button. So it said make ID. If I change that, I'll do this. It'll add the model ID, and I'll do a year. I'll add the year. Should show a company. If I switch years, or should show a car. And if I hit the back button, everything updates here. And if I hit the, if I go to Nissan, it should remove everything. Go back to make ID 2, and then just like the bindings. I haven't experimented with all of it, but it does seem to work. There is, like, I did notice a two-way binding, like a weird issue with if select and the items change for can value with a select. I noticed a bug that I've got to go fix. I guess if we already released 2.1.1, then it's too late for it to go in there. I probably want to do that today, but that'll be in the next fix. But anyways, I guess I just really wanted to show people how this is the way, from a high level architecture, really how you should be building your apps. Now, so using the define plugin to define the behavior of your page, the large scale, highest order business rules or UI rules of the page. And in this case, the whole page is, I've got it all just in this one kind of component, one view model that just details how when I switch forward here, it needs to remove the selected model ID and the selected years and so forth. And I think define lets you articulate those rules really well, and kind of encapsulate them nicely into a view model. And then now you can, with can_route map, you can cross-bind those view models to your route and then use them to kind of render a component. One nice thing that I would like is to be able to do this. So like I could just do make model year view model. I'd have to probably call ready to create the instance, I assume, right away. I don't know, Brian, if it like creates one right away. But then I'd like the syntax to be here, kind of like can.route.map. I think we should support that. Ideally, you wouldn't have to do this either. But I'm not sure if we should like create the instance if you pass a constructor until ready is called. Probably not, because it'll change potentially. Like if ready is called when like it actually go check the hash and change the properties on what's there. So actually, if you think about it, you probably want to call ready before your component is past the instance, because this would cause a double requests, I bet, otherwise, because like this view model is checking the make ID. Initially, there would be no make ID, but well, I guess in this case, it wouldn't cause a double request, but like it could potentially if, by the basically having nothing in no can route properties, your make model, your view model loads one kind of set of data, but then once the actual hash is read, it needs to load a different set of data. That's why you probably need to call ready before this is set up, or at least before actually. I don't know. It's an interesting question. Before actually, we might need to like kind of do some fine tuning around here to like make this easy to set up so that you don't have to kind of get this you don't have to have the ordering pay as attention as much. You should just be able to do can route map kind of independently of, like, this should almost give a promise. In some ways, what this should do is really we should be doing like this. This way you can define, the value doesn't have to be set first. I can then move this down here, and that would be okay. I don't know. There's some kind of chicken and egg problems that we'll probably want to work out. So that was one thing, and then the other thing that I wanted to show is hopefully actually, look, Curtis, while you're talking, I'm gonna dig in, and I found I made a cool animation helper that I want to show, but I've got to find out where that code is. So if you want to talk through your stuff.
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen. Okay. So 2.1.1 isn't out yet. It's due today. I merged a bunch of stuff, 18 issues yesterday, and we still have 4 issues open. So the things that still have to get fixed, this just needs a test, but it's you should be able to use helpers inside of a partial. This one, I'm not sure if you're going to work on this, Justin, or if you want me to take a look, but if you use else inside of an attribute, it just doesn't do anything.
I can take a look at that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of sick today, so I'm trying to take it really easy.
This one is one I'm going to take care of. If you use debounce, the context, we just need to do a simple change so that it gets the new context each time. Right now the context is staying the same once you've called it once. And this one, which is still open, it's existed for a long time, but not a lot of people are complaining about it. If you have a route or a control that uses routes and you destroy the control, it's possible that some of your callbacks will get fired after your control is destroyed, which might be an issue with jQuery doing some caching or something like that. But I haven't really looked into this. The stuff that's actually already fixed, a lot of documentation clarification. A couple of our demos had some bugs that we fixed. There's a couple things with stash and components that we're fixing, like IE8 had some issues where it wasn't in the document namespace if you, because we're using clone node, which has some known issues in IE8, and HTML shiv doesn't shim that for us. But really, all really minor things. Mostly documentation, but a couple minor bugs. And there hasn't really been any new issues that have come up. Most stuff is slated for 2.2. We might have one more patch release before 2.2 if we have enough issues that pop up.
Has anyone taken a look at that, like the excessive amount of warnings coming from Mustache? I think someone from Matovi tried to upgrade their app to, I don't know if there's been an issue for this, but we talked about this last week. You know what I'm referencing?
Yeah, I remember, 'cause that's the thing that Eric added.
Yeah.
I have not looked at it.
So it might be worth just. I remember someone from Adobe plugged it into their app, and they saw like hundreds or maybe even 1,000+ warnings pop up, and I have a hunch that it may not have been all like the right warnings. Like it could have been because there were helpers. Maybe it didn't take into account helpers, or something else weird. Because it just seemed odd. There were definitely not 1,000 keys missing from the mustache template. So there may be an issue there that it's like too trigger happy with the warnings.
Okay, I'll take a look and then log an issue. I'm thinking about doing this patch release a little later today, so we still have time to get, if you know of minor things like just in that can value thing, we might be able to get it into this patch. Other than that, yeah, just a couple more bugs left, and then we're going to push out 2.1.1.
Cool.
Any 2.2 things or other things that we want to talk about for CanJS?
I had a 2.2 thing that we can talk about, but I will save that till after my the other thing I wanted to show.
Okay. Are there any questions about 2.1.1? Otherwise, I'll pass it back to Justin. All right.
So hopefully you guys can see my screen. A fade-in helper I made. Just wanted to show what that would look like. So I'll kind of start with I'll just kind of rewrite it actually. So I wanted to make like a fade, something that would fade in the span inside here. Oh, I got rid of these helpers. So when this was inserted into the page, like the span, I wanted it to fade in, and I want to be able to say like how long it'll take to fade in. So like something like 200, like two seconds. Actually, I'll make it a little bit longer so you can easily see. So let me open up my demo page. Just make sure that that is all kind of set up. Okay, it just says hello world. It doesn't do anything right now. So with 2.1, you can start kind of making your custom attributes. So if I wanted like a fade-in helper, this gets called the element and the attribute data. Basically, the attribute data really is just the attribute name. It isn't actually the value. You kind of have to process that yourself. But it also includes the mustache scope. So for a very basic helper, what I just might do is wait till that element is inserted, because you can listen to the inserted event. And then I'll probably just do a 1. And then when it's inserted, I will just, for now, just to start, I will do this dot fade in. And I just want to show how to like read from the scope and that kind of thing. So that did not work. Hold on a second. Let me make sure I got the right page open here. I do. Make sure that's getting. Oh, you got to hide before you fade in, right? So one thing you might do to make that actually, I might do. Make sure. I don't know if this is gonna work. Let's try it. Like hiding an element before it's in the page. I'm not sure how what jQuery does. Hopefully it does to display it. Oh, there it worked. Okay, so you can kind of see it fades in with a normal 1 second fading in. Now what I want to do is make that configurable. So the first way I could do that is just like I could just read kind of the time from the attribute. So I do element.get attribute fade in, and I will type coerce that to a number and just pass that here. So now there, it's slowly fading in. Let me make that an H1 inside the span, just so it's like it shows up more. So, yay, slowly fades in. Now, starting with 2.1, it's a best practice that let's say I was passing a fade in time into the scope of this template. I'd want to read that fade in time, so I'd want to be able to like pass that somehow. With 2.1, it's best practice to make any kind of attribute helpers read from the scope with the little curly braces. So what they might want to do is pass it in like that, fade in time, single curly braces. So we don't actually provide any like help to detect one or the other. We leave it kind of up to you if this is even what you want to do, even though it's best practice. So I just wanted to show how you would make something like this work. What I would do is get the, I'd probably just get the fade in time, and then I would just check like if time, the first thing is a curly brace. I'd probably check the end too if I was really being smart, but I'm not going to do it here. If it's a starting curly brace, then I'm going to say time is going to be the, I'm going to read using after data. There's the scope in there. So I can read from mustache's scope. I'm going to pass the after. But the attribute I'm going to read is essentially fade in time. To get that, I need to do this time.substir1, start at the second character, and then go time minus length, time.length minus 2. And then otherwise, I'm just going to type chorus time, because it's just, we're going to read the string into a number. And now it should fade in 20 seconds, which will be really slow, but at least it should work. Yeah, nice slow fade in. So anyways, what I'm hoping is that as a community, we can start creating these kind of helpers that'll make it a lot easier to add rich behavior in the view. And this is how you would do that, for one example.
Hey, Justin.
Mm-hmm.
This example, should that attribute like remove itself after it is done fading in?
So we don't remove attributes in any of our other plugins. I don't know, so some people don't like having all that extra, attributes visible, but I actually kind of do, because if I'm debugging someone else's code and I'm like, oh, how the heck is that fading in? Like, what's causing that to fade in? To me, it's nice to just be able to inspect that element and see that there's a fade in.
Right, no, I'm saying after it's done fading in the callback, would it be best to remove it so you can fade it in again?
No, I mean, the idea is this widget fades in your element, like when it's inserted into the page.
But then how do you fade it in again? Oh,
fade it in again. You don't need to fade it in. It's in the page.
Yeah.
Like you could have you could, if you really wanted to make a smarter one, you could also listen to removed to know that, well, or you just don't use one, you just use bind. So every time, and what you'd probably, so you could do it this way, right? And then you might need to call hide in here again, just to make sure it's going to be fading in every time. But this is more for the case where, like, okay, I've just changed pages and I need the warning, sometimes you have like you just created a user 5, or you just deleted something kind of on the top of your page. Yeah. If you need that to fade in, you could use this fade in helper.
Yeah, that's certainly better than like adding jQuery in your.
Yeah, and you can couple it, right? So this would work if you have like an if like logged in. Right? So every time like the logged in state changed, this element would be, an inserted event would be fired, so it would kind of fade in or remove it when you're not logged in. So like, this is how you could do that.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. So the other thing I want to talk about is like for 2.2, we've talked about being able to have components like found in the page and some kind of view stuff that happens with the content in the page. And last night I was on the plane ride home. I was thinking about that, and I kind of realized that no application that anyone should ever write would have mustache in the page body. because you would see even if like, but if we bottom loading scripts, and even if we weren't, you would see, like, the user would see a flash where they actually it shows message on the page. If you guys understand what I'm saying, right? Like, you would see that, and then that would get replaced with I started trying to work on this. That would get replaced with whatever the data was that you kind of passed to the initial thing, the initial template or whatever. So I was thinking that for 2.2, I don't know if we could support it, but it would look like hell. I'm starting to lean to the opinion that, like, we can only support custom elements and attributes in the page at the time of loading. You couldn't even support this. If you wanted to do bar, you would have to do something like span, or like, I don't know what it would be, like can value, something like key equals, and this is just horrible, right? I don't know what to do. Key equals bar or whatever. And then the good thing about this, though, is that one, like, we'd have to use a different kind of processing model where a template right now kind of fully parses the template, and then kind of will do evaluation, like can do evaluation later. With this, you're really doing evaluation and kind of parsing at the same time. You're actually not parsing, you're just going to if, and then you're looking up the foo in the stack immediately, and then deciding whether you should like hide or basically remove all of the children. So you would still see a div in the page, but like when it loaded, but you would not like see anything ugly, right? If foo was even false, you would see a div, but presumably it's much easier to structure, so you're not going to have a flash of mustache stuff. So, my guess is this is why, like, Angular, doesn't have kind of mustache, even though mustache is so much nicer to do directive kind of control flows with. I don't know what you guys have opinions and thoughts about this.
I mean, that syntax is hard to swallow.
But like
having XML flashbacks.
Yeah, but what else could we do? Like, there's no alternative but a flash, right? Like, because especially if you're loading bottom loading scripts, now we could, even if we were top loading scripts, you would still see a flash. Because you have to get, like, if this was a special tag, like, let's say we only did it in components, before this component is created, its inner contents all need to be parsed and are typically rendered, right? The browser would like render, you'd see message on the screen by the time you got to the end component tag. So this is the problem, right? That's why like mustache like this, we can't even really handle, because you have to, like, I was starting to kind of parse the DOM, and I realized, like, oh, you have got to get to the ending if before you can really decide what to do with the div inside here. You have to like know all of this content. So you can't really like where this, you can just hit foo and then immediately decide what to do with this.
So this may be naive, but I mean, if we had if this page had like a head-loaded CSS file that just hid all the parts that are templatey, wouldn't that also?
Yeah. I was thinking about that, but
worse.
Like what? I mean, you still have to put like some identifier around the templatey parts, right? Like if you can't have
we could do something like add some kind of hidden class to every component, and then automatically insert a display hidden CSS rule.
I was thinking about that too, but you'd have to have that script load. Like first, it wouldn't work in browsers that don't support register element. Like you would have to, browsers that do, you could use that technique, because then but you'd have to preload your scripts before the component was found in the page. like you'd have to make sure that you loaded the component code here so that, like, unless we made people manually do style equals display none, which I don't want to do, you have to, like, component itself would have to be kind of found with register element and then hide itself, like, when the element is found. So I thought about that, and that's like it's got two negatives, but it's not like it's not the worst thing in the world.
Well, how about we could have a standard CSS style sheet that
I don't think you can match wildcards though, right? Like you can't like.
Yeah, you can just have a wildcard that displays none, everything.
Oh, yeah. Well,
you can. I mean, and then just remove that style.
But then you're losing the and then why not just do display none on the body, and it just is like a standard thing that you do, and then we will like once it's done, we could just.
Actually, I was thinking that we could say that this only works if you're working with components, and we could display none everything that isn't a standard HTML tag, and then we remove that single link element from the head. I think that removes the style, right?
Well, but how do you remove everything that is not standard?
Basically what we do is we add a star for display none, and then we list everything and put display whatever, you know. I mean, CSS resets do this all the time, so we can just...
Yeah, they do. You're right.
I don't know how well that'll work, but I think and it's kind of hacky, you know, but it would mean that people get to do this, which is...
Well, it mean that components would all have hidden everything, right? So, but everything else would. It's not a bad idea.
It's also kind of nice because I've realized one thing that I think is a bit of a gotcha when working with components is that unknown elements, or what is it? Unknown elements or invalid elements. What is it that they get parsed to if they're like outright invalid? It's one of those two.
It's like unknown or something. Yeah. It's different in IE versus.
Yeah. It's standard depending on whether you're in HTML5 with component support or not. But the point is, one gotcha with components is that they have no display style, and that actually breaks things in really subtle ways. So including kind of a standard reset for working with components that adds display block to every component.
They're display inline by default or something, right?
Display block is probably more expected when you're working with components, but yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's a really high-level thing, then it'll just kind of fall into the, fall in properly.
Yeah, that's not a bad way of doing it.
So I have found myself like wrapping components to always have display none in their included styles, and that's kind of hacky. I think I'd like the idea of a standard reset better.
Yeah. That's something to work from. Okay, cool. That makes me feel better. Good idea. Cool. That's all I have in terms of like stuff to show and talk about. Unless we want to like meet Kyle. I don't know if you got any GitHub stuff.
Well, we are almost ready to.
There's a cool ass leaderboard. Mikhail, am I frozen? Or is Mikhail frozen?
Mikhail's frozen.
Oh, okay.
He's frozen several times.
He's looking to the heavens.
Well, I'll share my screen real quick and just show that we have this cool leaderboard now with like everybody. Thanks to everybody who's like really putting an effort on CanJS, no matter where you are on this leaderboard. And we can also include like everybody at Vitovi. I think CanJS is Brian, but I'm not sure if it's like. I'm not sure if it's just the CanJS Twitter feed or Brian, but this is like everybody, and then we have just like the people who like are not at Vitovi. So it's pretty fun to look at.
Is that filtering only for someone who's an admin or something? Because I don't see that in GitHub.
Oh. If you go to BitHub, you gotta go to click on the leaderboard.
Yeah, I see the leaderboard, but that filter admins or include admins dropdown isn't there.
Maybe you need to refresh your cache.
I'll give it a try.
Cool. All right, that's all I have. Anything else? All right, cool. Thanks everybody for coming. Look forward to the next week.
Cool. Bye, guys.
Yeah.
See you, everyone.